Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's Sunday, May 2nd, and this is my second Sunday show. So welcome. If you're watching, don't forget to like and share this video. We are live on not only Facebook, but we're also live on YouTube as well. So hello to YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, so you can get the notifications for when I go live. So I'm just waiting for the usual suspects to start showing up now that I'm live. But for some reason, I'm not live on Facebook, and I don't know why. All right, so. Oh my. I'm only live on remove. I don't know why this was removed. So save changes. So I'm just waiting. I guess I was. Oh, there I am. I'm welcome, Facebook. Sorry about that. But anyways, now that we're both here, I apologize. For some reason, it deleted Facebook. But anyways, welcome. So let me start all over again. Welcome to the second Sunday show. If you're watching on Facebook, don't forget to like and share this video. Share with as many people as possible. If you're watching on YouTube at our YouTube channel, I should say my YouTube channel, welcome. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. That way you can get those notifications that I am live. Jim Sadler, all the way from England. Good morning. It is morning. Yes, it is over there. So I have quite a few people watching. My grandmother is finally here. Hello. My Aunt Valerie is here. Hello. I apologize. For some reason, Facebook was deleted, so I had to re-add it. So I was only live on YouTube. So you didn't miss much. So my sister Heather is with me. Hello. Welcome. Welcome. I'm still missing a couple of other people here. So I'm just going to tag some people. We're going to go to Facebook here in just a second. So give me 1 second here while I share my own show. Because if I don't, some of my sisters don't show up. And we have Ashley. Right. There we go. So I have tagged my other two sisters. My granny is here, Jim. Yes, she is. My grandmother always watches. She watches every show because I'm just that popular, right? Right. I know my other aunt is, I don't know what, I think she was making food or something. I was just on the phone with her. So what's up? What's up, everyone? Here it is rainy. It's not cold. Thank God. It was nice earlier today. Thank God. But yeah, other than that, yeah. Yeah, Granny. We don't say Granny. So it's Grandma or Graham. It's Graham. What's up, Graham? So that's usually what we say. I think Granny is like a England thing, isn't it? Granny. I don't know. But anyways. So yeah. So Sunday, we do have a guest tonight, by the way. She'll be popping on around 8:30ish. So I am going to be chit-chatting with author Marie Powell. And she is going to be coming on to talk about her latest book, which is called Water Sight, Book 2. So there's a couple of books that she has, and you can find her on Amazon. So I'm going to make sure I post her Amazon link on the Facebook page, so that way you can find it. So she is the author of Last of the Gifted, Spirit Sight Book 1, and Water Sight Book 2. These books are medieval fantasy. It's about two siblings who pledge their magical gifts to protect their people, from the fierce invading army of Edward I. Oh. With help from the last true Prince of Wales after his murder. Interesting. So we're going to have a lot to talk about. So right up your alley, Jim. Edward I. So that's what she's going to be coming on to talk about. So, and I apologize for Thursday's show, by the way. I was not able to do Thursday's show. I had to cancel that show. And I apologize to Christian Cameron, who was supposed to come on, another author. Hopefully I can get him to reschedule. I really would like to talk to him. So, yeah. Meemaw. Meemaw is a southern way of saying grandma. So, Jim, yep, and dragons. Oh, there's my other aunt. Hello, welcome. So I got all these people waiting. So she's going to be coming on in about, 6 or 7 minutes or so. So again, it's medieval fantasy tonight. So it's going to be good. It's going to be good. I worked today. Normally I don't work on Sundays, so this is totally different for me. I thought the show was at 7:30. Come to find out it was not. I was an hour behind. So I'm glad about that. But yeah. What's everyone been doing since the last time we spoke? It's been a while now. I have not been doing very much at all except work. Too much work. I'm tired. So I'm hoping this interview goes very well. And I also just want to point out that I know nothing about Marie Powell. I have not read any of her books. There's just not enough time between them booking and coming onto the show for me to read. So I'm learning about the guest right along with you guys. I know nothing. And you know what? I actually prefer it that way because I like learning new things. So, yeah. Let's see. Jim, questions lined up. Laugh out loud. Did he use a long sword or a claymore? Laugh out loud. Yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, make sure you post your questions. The guest, depending on how they're logging on, will be able to see your comments. So if I don't see them and get to them, hopefully they'll read the questions as well. So it's kind of another reason why I use StreamYard. It's the best. So, yeah. I'm still missing two of my sisters. I don't understand what's happening here. I don't want them. You didn't message me. Yeah, I did. So there's one down. Now I got to message the other one. Kayla. There we go. And my sister Kayla is up from Oklahoma, so she's visiting. So I already got to see her yesterday, which was pretty cool. So she's here until the 8th. So I'm going to be hanging out with her on Thursday. So before the show. Yeah. Who else is watching? I have all these people watching, but no one's really saying anything. Oh, I only have... That's interesting. I know, it's a Sunday, so people aren't used to me doing shows on Sundays yet. So hopefully once this picks up and we start doing the shows, all the time on schedule, I think more people will show up. So, yeah. So we got about 5 minutes left until she comes on. So if anyone has any questions for me or about the show, about the upcoming guest, there she is. So instead of wasting any more time, because I always go over the 30 minutes. So I do it all the time. So, right. So instead of just waiting, I'm going to bring her on. We're going to chit chat and go from there.
Sounds good.
Right. There you are. Hello. Welcome. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, Brian. How are you?
I'm fantastic. A little tired.
Yeah.
Normally I don't work on Sundays, but today I had to work for the first time. So
Mm.
I thought the show was for 7:30. Well, 7:45. Um, I got out at 7. It's about a 25 to 30-minute drive home. So I'm just like racing. And then when you
Aw.
sent that email back saying, yeah, we meet up in about an hour, I'm like, an hour? Oh,
Well,
okay. So I had
I,
time. Perfect.
I did that because sometimes my time is coordinated with Calgary, and sometimes my time is coordinated with like Manitoba, right?
Right.
So at this time of year, you never know because like the time change has been recent enough that sometimes my computer thinks it's in Alberta, and it's
Okay.
really supposed to be in Manitoba right now. We don't do daylight savings here, so our time fluctuates weirdly with everybody else's, and it's I wasn't sure if my clock said 6:30, but I was in my time, right? But I wasn't sure if that was
Right.
really true or not. And then when I got your email, I thought, well, I'll just say an hour and see what he
Yeah.
says. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
beautiful.
I quickly ran. I grabbed something to eat and
Good.
got what I need to do. So you are
Super.
up in Canada, right? Correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So most of the authors from Creative Edge are in Canada.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
see, yeah, that's where Mickey is. He's in a city that's partly in Alberta and partly in Saskatchewan.
Okay.
So he can go either way, like depending on. But yeah, he's basically in I guess it's Lloydminster that he's actually living in. But I think he's sort of based out of Calgary in Alberta.
Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've already, the last person that I had on, I explained to them that there is not enough time between booking the interview and the person actually coming on for me to read anything. So I am learning about you for the first time, right along with everyone else. And I don't know, can you see the comments as they're coming up?
I can't, but maybe I could if I moved into comments here. There we go. Oh yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah,
so I
that's
can.
why
Yes.
I love this program because not only can I see the comments, but the guests can as well. So if there's questions coming up, I don't miss anything. So yeah, perfect. Okay, so yeah, so I'm learning right along with them about the guest and the books, and they sound interesting. I've already scoped out the Amazon page, author page for the books. So explain medieval fantasy. What got you into medieval fantasy?
What got me into it? Okay,
Uh,
well, it isn't. I mean, I'm a fantasy writer, but I actually took a trip to Wales because my background is Welsh. My grandfather was Welsh, a Welsh speaker. And I mean, he was dead by the time I was born. All my grandparents were, right? So I had a little, and I was the youngest in the family. So hearing all the stories that everybody else told and never having met any of these people, I got a little obsessed, right? So anyway, I decided I had to go there and see what it was all about. And the weird thing is that people knew he was from Wales, right? But they didn't know exactly where. And I just had a hunch that it would be North Wales because my grandmother is from North England. And I thought, yeah, I bet, without any real knowledge. So I went there, booked basically a uh, partly family holiday, partly working holiday, because I am also a journalist. And I was thinking
mm,
about doing travel writing. And I thought, well, not many people write about Wales, right? So maybe I'll do this and we'll see how it goes. And I, so I got there and I was like, okay, I had done all this research, right? And I mean, I had at the time I was a single parent with 2 kids. And by the time we got out of the house and into the car and over to the airport, I realized that I'd left all the research on my kitchen table.
mm,
So we got to Wales and it was kind of like following your nose, but it was kind of serendipitous at the same time because I was learning about what that country was all about. And of course, I've always been kind of fascinated by castles and things like that.
mm-hmm.
So I'm going and looking around these castles, and I'm discovering that the big ones that I thought of as the Welsh castles, like Conwy and Beaumaris and Carnarvon, those ones that you hear about and you see on the internet all the time, are
Mm.
not actually Welsh castles. They're English castles, and they were created to subjugate the Welsh after the Welsh lost a war. So, yeah, 1282, 1283, big invasion. They lose, right? And so I don't know, that caught my attention. And then because they were, now that I knew that they were English castles, I felt honor bound to my grandfather to find some Welsh ones and see what that was all about. Because Wales is a place where there are supposed to be 500 castles.
Mm.
It's really tiny. Like in my province of Saskatchewan, which is one of the smaller Canadian provinces, we're right in the middle of Canada, and you could put Wales, the whole thing, into the corner of our province, which we call Cypress Hills. It's like a national park, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
So like you know. Anyway, so I'm thinking 500 castles. Like, how do you get them in this area, right? And so there was a lot of surprises, and at the same time, the place is like very old feeling, like
Mm.
there's stuff there. We stayed up for a week on a sheep farm, a working sheep farm with like sheep, little lambs jumping all around. It was hilarious. It was really fun.
Yeah.
At one point, we'd been, traipsing around the hills, and we saw these sort of old stone things, like, looked like might have been a structure at some time, but there was just kind of like the flooring left. So I asked the farmer, like, what is that exactly? Do you know anything about it? What was it? And he said, oh, yeah, that was an original farm area here in this part of the country. And it dates from about 1100. And like, I'm from Regina, which dates from about 1880, right? So, so it's kind of like, whoa, 1100, you're kidding. And I don't know, everything there just felt really surprising to me and really old. And so I started to get interested in that. We were also 526 castles, Jim says. Yes, thank you, Jim. But yeah, I mean, a lot of castles for a little tiny area, right?
Yeah.
But we were staying in the sheep farm about 5 miles down the highway from Dolwith Castle, which is kind of large, but
Mm-hmm.
it's supposedly one of the Welsh castles of the Welsh princes. And so we had to go take a look, and like, huge difference when we were looking around the English castles, like, you had to buy tickets, and there was like little shops, and there was guides that could take you on guided tours. You could pay them money, and they took you around and showed you all these things. And when you got to Dolwith Castle, we pulled up into this kind of area that looked like it might have been a parking lot. Kind of wasn't really paved. Anyway, we
Hmm.
pulled into it. We parked the little car that we had rented. I was a little scared of that car because it was a little bigger than I had anticipated, and it was a rental. The first time I've really rented a car in a foreign country.
Hmm.
Anyway, so we drove it into this place and parked it, and we went up, and my tickets, I had them out, like I had bought tickets. And there was nobody to give them to. There was nobody anywhere. There was no little shop. There was no nothing. There was no one, right? We were the only people in the vicinity that I could see. And so we went up. And of course, the signs that were there, they were just pictures, right? And there were pictures of people falling off of mountains and falling off of rocks and things. It was kind of like, oh, kind of enter at your own risk, right? Anyway, we went up, and we climbed up into that area. And it is gorgeous. There was this beautiful little waterfall thing, like in this area, nice green area. We're walking up into it. And then there's the big stone structure, and we're looking at it, and we realize that the door is up on the first floor. It's not down on the ground like you think of, it's supposed to have a portcullis and all this other kind of stuff. Yeah, no, it was actually one of the Welsh ways of doing things was to put their door high enough that you had to get up with a ladder, and they could push it away if the bad guys came, right? And that's what, let's just say they were a little technologically outgunned or outdone maybe, because they didn't have any guns then, of course.
Yeah.
But anyway, but there was a sort of a stone staircase, rickety thing. So we climbed up, and into this door, and there were these placards around the main floor there. So we were looking around, and like, you could see the area where the hearth was, the kitchen and all that. And like, some of the signs were pointing out areas. And apparently the Welsh kind of they had a common area there. They would all sleep together, women on one side, men on the other, at least in theory, for at least part of the night, right? Anyway, so that was the way it was organized. And we're looking around, and there was the history on some of it. And this was a castle that had been captured by the English in 1283, and that was the January of 1283. And the first time possibly that anyone had used camouflage, because Edward I camouflaged his men against the snow in white outfits that were apparently made by his
Oh,
wife. Anyway, there was all these really just interesting little tidbits, little pieces of information. And then we were reading, and it was like it got kind of darker and darker. The Welsh lost the ability to use their own language. It was outlawed from 1283 on. They lost their law. They had a whole system of law from the 900s on, and it was outlawed and replaced by English law. And they were not allowed to stay. The English created walled cities and brought in English settlers to move there, and the Welsh were not allowed to stay in after 5 o'clock at night. They had to leave, but they had to report, and just all these things that I hadn't realized, and all these losses that I didn't know about. And I am, as I said, I'm from Regina, and I know of my own area that the First Nations people here until about 1960 were not allowed to stay in the town overnight. They were supposed to sleep on an area that is now the exhibition grounds. And then I'm reading this went on in 1282, right? And I'm like, wow.
yeah.
And so I got more and more interested. I started reading. I found out there were a lot of gaps. There's a lot of history that was deliberately destroyed, especially on the Welsh side of things, but also there were records that were not kept on the English side of things, because that's how bad it got in those years when they were subjugating the Welsh. They went at it deliberately, methodically, and they learned everything they needed to learn to subjugate the Scottish 30 years down the road when they got to Scotland, right? But they learned all that by doing it to the Welsh. And it hit me, because that's my background, right?
Right.
And I never knew my grandfather, so I could invent a lot of ancestry that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You tend to do that, you tend to think about what might or might not happen or have happened, or where you might have come from if you really don't know, you know what I mean? And of course, being a fantasy writer as well, I got to thinking about how these things might have happened, and in the gaps of the history, how that might have gone if you used your imagination a little bit, and you had some characters with magical abilities,
Mm-hmm.
which immediately I had to start doing. And so it went from there. And that's what, where I got the idea from. And that's the long version. Sorry, I
That's
took a long
okay.
time to
That's
tell you
okay.
about that, but
Yeah, sure.
yeah,
I didn't know any of that stuff.
me
So,
either.
and
And
I love history. So, especially, when it comes to the British and Scotland and all that stuff. Oh yeah.
yeah,
But no, I didn't know that. That's very interesting to know.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, just the different things that might or might not have happened in that time period, and there being this lack of information. And usually, in a war, like, there's a lot of information, right? There's, and you can piece it together from records, and the army keeps records, and this and that. But they didn't really have much of that in Wales. There's some records, and the more I got into it, the more I got reading about it, the more interested I got. And like, this was 2006, Brian. So these books were not quick. Okay. At
yeah,
the same time as I'm writing these books, I'm writing a bunch of other books too. But I kept coming back to this, and playing with it a little bit more and a little bit more, and just filling in gaps here and there. So yeah, it became quite the project, I guess you could say.
I guess so. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, Jim actually is watching from Oxford, England.
I see that.
Yeah, so this is right up his alley there. And
Yeah,
he loves all that fantasy stuff. So, um,
I should say one of my grandfathers is from Oxfordshire. They're the Kites from Oxford. Anyway, I'm sure they don't know you, Jim, and I'm sure we are not related or anything, but but yeah. Anyway, it's a small world.
so by doing all of that research, that started your first book. So that was
Yeah, Spirit Sight, isn't it?
Last of the Gifted, or like
Yeah,
just start
Last
the
of the Gifted.
whole.
This is it right here. Yeah,
Okay.
um, and that's Spirit Sight, and then the second half of that year became Water Sight. So there's two main characters in the book, one a young man and one a young woman, and they have magical abilities that they pledge, to try and protect their people from these this massive invading English army. And at the same time, they have some help from the last true Prince of Wales after his murder. So Hugh has a special ability to bond with birds and animals, right? A kind of an empathy. And as he happens to be there as the prince is being killed and beheaded in the field of Kilmary, and he bonds. I guess he has a magical melding with the last true Prince of Wales and takes his spirit inside of him. So after that, the prince is able to give them some advice and help and arguments about how they should do things, based on this army coming in and what he knows. And this is the Prince of Wales who pulled the whole country together, who was the prince for 40 years, Llywelyn ap Griffith, right? So the last Prince of Wales. And there's a lot of gaps with him too, because there was a lot of records about him that were destroyed. But he did manage to force the English to call him prince for about 10 years. And then they captured the woman who was going to be his wife and kept her prisoner for 3 years so that he would give everything up. And he did that. And so this is he for about 5 years, he just was in the northern province of Wales, which is just in the very north part. And basically, his wife died in childbirth. And so these are the kids that are from a family that serves him with fealty, the fealty that they felt in the 12th century and the 13th century for the lords that they served, and that the lords felt for them, I guess, because there was a bit of a difference in the way things were done in Wales versus the way they were done in England.
Right.
And like the prince doesn't mean royalty in Wales, it means the principal citizen. So the guy that serves you best is the one that you decide to should be the prince. So, a little bit different. And I wanted to make sure that I had the chance to talk about those differences, because that's what was lost, right? So I start Spirit Side a little slow, maybe, for an adventure novel, but deliberately so that I can talk a little bit about the land that was lost, the land that is no more, and the people that are really no more, because
Right. Yeah.
Because of what was done. And yet the other thing that kind of impressed me, right, was that where we were driving now and this was in 2006, where we were going and where we were, the Welsh language was very much back, right? It's like the first language on signs is Welsh. The second sign, the little language underneath it is English. Just many things seem to have come back in terms of Welsh culture, and people were learning a little bit more about Llywelyn ap Griffith than had been allowed in previous decades, I guess, of the 20th century, 21st century. And so it was kind of interesting. And I thought, well, how after, because that's like 1283, you lose everything apparently. And yet in 1990, when they got the right to use their own language again, they bring it back, right? And there it is. And it's like, according to what I was reading, it was being spoken the way it was spoken in the 1200s, like it had not changed because it had been hidden. And that's the kind of family lore that I had understood when I was growing up too, is that, I don't know if it's true or not, but the Welsh were the inventors in a way of guerrilla warfare because they hid in the mountains and, this kind of thing. And my grandfather was a Welsh speaker. He put that on when he first came to Canada. The first census that he filled out was in 1916, and he actually put on it that he was a Welsh first speaker, right? Welsh first language. So I thought that was quite radical, in a way, because at that time it would have been still outlawed, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I had to go back and learn a little Welsh. So I'm now a kindergarten Welsh speaker.
Okay.
Yeah, I can say cheers in Welsh, right? And a few words here and there, but I did that again, partly research for the book, partly research for my family history, right, or part of my family sort of journey,
Yeah.
I guess you could say.
So did you have to do like ancestry.com or
I
any of
did
those?
Yeah, I did in the end. I thought somehow that when I got there, I was going to do all this genealogical research, like in Wales, right? And we went to Aberystwyth, where supposedly there was going to be some records, and I had to be photographed, right? And in order to get into the library there, it
Okay.
was like pretty radical. I had to my photograph. I picture ID and this, that, and the next thing. I went through this whole process of getting that, and I got up to the wicket, and I wanted to see like the red book, or one of those old books, like the red
Right.
book or
Yeah.
the black book or one of those. And the woman at the counter just looked at me, and I could tell she was trying really hard not to laugh, because I mean, I had just come from Canada all the way there hoping to see an ancient old book. And she said, you realize that they're on the internet, right? Like, you'll never see them here, but you can see what's in them on the internet. And so that was pretty strange. You know, there was a lot of things that I thought I could do there that I discovered I could do even better online.
Right.
I did have the weird experience of going to a little town called Dinbych, and realizing that, and well, outside of it is another little town called Bodveri, which really is only a bar. And so for the sake of it, we drove down the highway to this place, turned around and drove back. And it turns out that I have relatives that live in Bodveri. I didn't know that, though, when I was there. I found that out on Ancestry later. So yeah, it's been an interesting, can I say that, no, I can't. My dad could. Jim is asking me if I can say the name of the longest town in the world. I think it
I
is.
heard about that. Yes, I did hear
Mhm.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, can't quite say that one, but my dad could. Um, yeah,
I'm not even gonna try.
not gonna try either.
No, no. So how long does it take for you to, when you get your research, you're ready. How long does it take for you to put the book together?
Well,
Before editing,
the
before
first
you're ready
book,
to edit.
yeah, the first book took years, like literally years, because I kept rewriting it. And I would take it to conferences, and I don't know if you have blue pencils or things like that where you are, but at writing conferences here in Canada, you can take in 3 or 4 pages of your manuscript to, you book an appointment with an editor who sits in a little room, and you go in with your manuscript, you put it down, they read it, and they edit it in front of you, which is very terrifying and very
Hmm.
cool. And I did that a few times with pieces of it. And I had there is a very well-known Canadian Scottish writer, Jack White, who died just recently last year. And he is also an actor, or was also an actor. And he was doing what's called a slush reading. At one point, he was the reader. And what you do there is totally unknown writers who are working on manuscripts bring a page up, and they put it in a box, and someone picks the pages out and someone reads them, right? And Jack White was the reader, and he read the first page of Spirit Sight, and that was it. I had to finish the book at that point because it was like marvelous. And
Wow.
so yeah, I'm now getting an audiobook of it made, and I've hired we've contracted, not hired, but we've contracted to work with a Welsh singer who is our narrator, and he's marvelous. He's great. So it's really neat to hear the words in a Welsh accent.
Okay.
Yeah, Jack White had quite the broad Scottish accent, and so it reminds me of that every time I hear it. So yeah. I see somebody was asking just a little while ago about what weapon I would choose, and I should say the weapon that Katrin chooses is a throwing knife, and there it is. We had a lot of fun making that picture, so you can see it. Whoop, there. It's supposed to be an eye for sight, right? But that's
Yeah.
Katrin's throwing daggers. Her betrothed Rhys makes her 3 daggers, and she uses them in water sight, and that would be my weapon of choice. As I'm sure you will know if you read the books, because that's what I was most taken with, I guess.
So is this a series? Is there going to be more?
I was writing a 3rd book, this year, actually. I finished Watersight last year and we published it, and I had the feeling that there was more to be said, right?
Mm,
And I also, there's a couple of characters that I wanted to follow through with in the book. And I was writing it, and it dawns on me that it's actually a spin-off. It's not really part of this series. This is, I think, a duology. I I'm tempted to write a third book, but I don't want to do that thing that people do where they do a sequel just because it's a sequel. And I know there's, a duology is not a really popular form.
mm,
You have a series is usually meaning three, right? Sometimes five or six or whatever, but not usually
yeah.
two. But I really feel like this is the arc of these two characters is pretty complete, pretty complete. Where I leave them off in this book, it's not like they can win. You know what I mean? But I think
Right.
I think I have them in a spot that I don't really want to. I'm going to disturb it in the next series. I'm going to make they're going to figure into the next series, but I really feel like these two books fit together really nicely, and I should just leave things as they are. But
Yeah.
I could be convinced otherwise, I guess, if people contacted me and said, no, you've got to write a third book. But I think what I'm hearing is people are pretty happy with the way the two go,
Okay.
together.
That makes sense. Yeah. I've noticed that a lot of authors will do that where, they'll write two, it's enough. But I'm going to start this series. You may know these characters because they were in the first, one or two or whatever.
Hmm.
And the characters from the two first books make a cameo or appearance in the book, along the way or something like that. So, yeah, I've seen that happening. Are these? I don't know what the correct term is. Not short story, but not a full book, but are they full books? Like how many
The
pages are they?
they're full books, yeah.
Okay.
280 pages for Spirit
Okay.
Sight and 316 for Water Sight, so
Okay.
a little bigger.
Yeah.
Kept getting bigger.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, yeah.
No.
I hope
Yeah.
not. It's a I don't know. It's not like it's like I don't know. I feel like I took it to where I needed to take it,
Yeah.
and it had to be that long. So no apologies.
Nope. Most people who like reading like the fact that the book just keeps going because there's just more and more and more. I've noticed that I've levitated towards shorter stories. So some of them are.
I love short stories. Yeah, I love I love writing short stories.
Like
Yeah,
150 words, maybe less, or
like
pages.
flash
Pages.
fiction, like 150 pages. I got you.
Right,
Yeah,
150 pages. I can't do the flash fiction. It's just too short, and it's like
it's
no.
it's it's like a little work of art.
Yeah,
Good piece of flash fiction. Yeah,
yeah,
really hard to do
and
actually.
it's almost like a tease
Yeah.
because you want
Well,
more.
it should be a whole story though. It should leave you with like a shock or an insight. You know what I mean? Like that's a
It
really good short
usually
story.
does. Well, most of them do, but it's just like, oh my god, this could have kept going. There's so much more here. I just know there is. So yeah. And how many books have you done altogether?
Altogether, I think it's 46. These two
Oh,
make it 46, but not novels. I've written a lot of children's books.
okay.
And I've got like 5 series of literacy young children's books that are intended to make reluctant readers want to read,
Oh,
and some middle grade nonfiction and things like that. And then this is like, I guess, my second and third novel. The first novel is kind of out of print at this point, but was
okay.
kind of a forerunner, a boutique version of this story, which has now
Wow.
expanded and become, a whole series, Last of the Gifted.
Nice. Wow. That's
Yeah.
a lot of books.
Yeah, I didn't start thinking I would ever write a novel. I mean, I'm a journalist, right? Like that, my training is short, tight, like
Right. Yeah.
tell it fast, tell it quick, and none of these adjectives and things, right? But I always kind of wrote poetry too, and that's another form that's
Okay.
quite condensed, right?
Hmm.
And then I started writing short stories. Really, really loved it. Really, like a short story is really hard to write, again, it's like a microcosm, right? It's like the whole. The idea is not to tell everything, right? But to tell that thing that makes this an important day in the life of this character, or an important moment even in the life of the character, right? So I wrote those for a few years and had some success. I had some publications and won a few little contests and things. And then I went to we have a thing here in Saskatchewan called the Sage Hill Writing Experience, which I would highly recommend if anybody wants to do writing or learn writing, learn more about writing, about themselves writing. It's not very expensive, and it lasts for 10 days in the summertime. And you go there and it's like you're on retreat, and it's always been in some kind of monastery or some remote place, like it's sort of you're off the beaten path for 10 days. And they had really good, they've always had really good people there. One of the people who happened to be there, I was there taking playwriting class because I'm also a dramaturg and I wrote some plays. And I Robert Croach was there. He's another Canadian novelist, and just a marvelous one, really good. And he was such a good teacher. He'd just be across the room speaking, and I'd kind of be drawn over there and have to pull up a chair and listen. And I ended up hanging out with the novelists for the summer, and sort of fell into writing novels that way. I mean, it was I didn't realize I wanted to write one until I started finding out what they were,
Mm,
more about them, and what and how you could not just journey into the one moment that was interesting or important for a character, but the whole of how the character got there and where they and why and what they might do there. You know, what they might how they might change. Or how
right.
they might change other people or other things around them, and so that really drew me. And it was about that same time that I had gone to Wales the first time and got struck by all this, research. And then, of course, I couldn't just write a novel. I had to write a historical fantasy, right? Which means years of research, and
Yeah.
and then I picked a time period where there was no information, so it was even better because it was like struggling to do the research.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I found a lot out, and I'm glad I did because it was a journey for me, a real journey of discovery, in a lot of different ways. I see another question here. My favorite kind of book to write. It's always the book I'm writing right now. I hate to say it, but I write anything, like anything that piques my interest at that moment. I'll write. I'm actually working today on a journalistic article, a profile of a fellow here, and at the same time, I'm working on a short story that I really want to finish. And I'm also working on like the book, which is going to be the first of the new series, or book 3
Mhm.
of this series, whatever it is. And so I don't know, children's versus adults. I've never written a book for adults. I have short stories for adults. But I've been thinking maybe that these new books might be for adults. So I don't know. I don't have a favorite. I just write because I can't stop myself, I guess.
So you would probably classify these books as young adult?
These ones are young adult. Yeah, I
Okay.
I mean, I've had arguments about that, but I think they're young adult because they're coming of age books.
Okay.
Not just because the protagonists are young people, 15 and 17. I guess they start out 14 and 16 and become 15 and 17. but
Mm,
um, but also because it's their journey and it's their awakening and their understanding of life and how they need to live it. That's really what these stories are all about, right? So so I feel that they're young adult books,
okay.
although everybody's reading them, and that's good. I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm happy.
absolutely.
I'm happy to have adults read them, and enjoy them. Hopefully people are reading them and enjoying them. I don't
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. So besides Amazon,
Mhm.
are your books anywhere else?
Yeah, everywhere. We went wide right from the get-go. I have just a little publisher from Moss Bank, Saskatchewan, but Wood Dragon Books. But we have the books available everywhere. So they're in Amazon, they're in like Barnes and Noble and Chapters and Kobo and Apple and everywhere you can get books, and in the libraries too. I worked in libraries for 15 years. I guess that's why I wrote the literacy books, because that's mostly what I did. I was a children's programmer. So,
Okay.
yeah, and so I really believe that everyone should have access to books,
Mhm.
and yeah. So if you want to suggest a book to your library, I would be very happy. But here in Canada too, like the libraries, if you suggest a book to our library system in Saskatchewan is province wide. It's like you can be in one city and get a book from, you can live in Regina and you can get a book from Saskatoon sent down here so you can read it,
Oh,
So yeah, so it's quite cool. And anyway, uh, it's been, I'm really happy to see them in a lot of libraries. They are in a lot of libraries now. I have a lot of friends, writer friends around, and I send them emails and say, order this book for your library, get it in there so people can read it, right? Because I really want it to be widely available. I see Jim is asking, can I order them direct from me and have them signed? It's so expensive to mail books. Do you know how much in Canada it costs? If I was to mail this book to the United States, it would cost me more than if I purchased it and sent it to somebody from one of the book ordering companies like Book Depository or somewhere. It would
mm,
cost me more to do it that way, or it cost me less to do it that way than to have my book here, sign it, and actually mail it to somebody, because it's like yeah. But I do have I am trying to figure out how to do that for a friend of mine in Ottawa who bought the books for his kids, and so what I've come up with is book plates, which people are doing now, right? Because of COVID, we're all at home. There isn't any, like, I go to conferences all the time, and when we were doing these covers, right, I was having these visions of having me sitting at a table with these beautiful covers, and I was, had all kinds of ways I was going to display them and show them and sell them in pairs and things like that. Didn't work because COVID. We're locked down here. We have 62 variants just in Regina alone, so it's not coming. It's not. We're not going to be unlocked anytime soon, right?
yeah, yeah,
And but this idea of book plates where you can have like not a sticker but like a label, sign the label and mail the label to somebody. So I could do that, right? And that's what I've been trying to work out, some way to do that. Because yeah, short of next year, I can go around places and sign them.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen this year. But basically, if anybody wanted to do that, you could contact me on my website, and I would definitely try and make that available somehow.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Or at least, like, you can also see if once we get going again, I always put where I am on my website. So if I'm going to be at a conference giving a panel or anything, I always make sure that it's there on my website. So, hopefully someday
I
I can
hope so.
connect with people. Yeah, hopefully we'll be out there at some point soon.
Yeah. Because of COVID, so I usually ask this because of when the lockdown actually first started. I think is when I actually started
Mhm.
doing this show because I did it previously with somebody else, but that was pre-COVID.
Mhm.
Um, since then, I mean, has writing books been easier? I mean, I know that you still have your other job besides that, the journalist part. Some are just
Yeah.
authors, so now they have time to just write.
Yeah. I would I
Are you
I would
finding that's the case?
I would love to be just an author and just write, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a Canadian author, so you don't make a lot of money doing this. But I also teach ESL. So I teach adult ESL as well.
Okay.
But yeah, I will say that yeah, it's focusing is easier because you're at home. You don't have all the travel and all that. Although I do find when I travel, I sort of think a lot,
Mm,
so I don't have that either. I have to go for a walk at least once a day just so that I can rethink and think and dream and do that stuff, that just let your
right.
brain go for a bit, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would say it's easier in some ways. I'm kind of two minds about when it all ends, like, and I really want it to end because I like to travel and I would like to go out into the world again and all that. But at the same time, I'm really happy teaching online. I don't want to necessarily have to go to my polytech to teach a class in person anymore. I'm kind of used to doing this whole online thing now after a year and 3 months or whatever it is, a year and 2 months
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, I do think that you know uh, it will be nice when it's over too. I always had to do this. I always had to organize time in order to have time to write. Right.
Mm,
Uh, so it's been a lot easier to organize, put it that way. It's been a lot easier to organize time. It weirdly, I waste a lot more of it, it seems, or I feel like I'm wasting time sometimes when, um, but you do that a lot, like what was that cartoon, Calvin and Hobbes or something, where uh, the little tiger says is sitting at the table, with his typewriter, and he's like sitting looking like this. And the other fellow comes along and says, "What are you doing?" And I thought you were supposed to be writing. And he says, "I am writing." He says, "No, you're not. You're not writing." He says, "Yeah, I don't hear your fingers typing on the keyboard, And he says, "Yeah, typists type. Writers look out the window, right?" So
Yeah.
like, yeah, I spend a lot I actually here looking out my window right now. But you do have to let your mind go a lot,
Mm.
just to kind of let things in there that you wouldn't necessarily normally think about, I think. Um, yeah. So it's been nice having, instead of having to travel and deal with traffic and deal with shopping and deal with all that, it's nice to be um, just quiet sometimes in the house thinking, looking out the window, coming up with
Yeah.
new ideas. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, we're slowly opening up around here. We can go shopping. I'm still working with the general public. Um,
Cool.
so yeah, in a way it's good. But in another way it's like we still have to wear the masks everywhere.
Yeah.
No movie theaters just yet. They're slowly starting to open up.
People
Uh,
are saying they're going to keep wearing masks, that even after we get back to real life again, or whatever it is when you go out of your house a lot, that people will probably still wear masks for a while. Hey, that'll be is I don't know. I'm interested to see how things change. That's
yeah.
the other reason why I want to write this other book. Is like I want to take the Welsh from 1283 into 1284, because they had a huge transition. And I feel like we are going through a huge transition, or we're
Mm.
about to. And so I'm kind of exploring that too by writing this next book in this series.
That'll be good. That
Yeah,
will be good. Yeah. So I'm definitely going to have to read these books. I've
cool.
been reading a lot, and when COVID hit, I had to step away from work, so I did stay home for a while. I was
Yeah,
locked up for about I don't even know, maybe 3 months or so. Um, I had nothing to, I didn't even know what to do. So I was
yeah,
on Amazon shopping, and then, it comes up with possible titles you may like or something. And I really had never read that much. I like reading, but I had the Kindle. So I'm like, yeah, I'll pay to, read.
yeah.
So I've been reading a lot of books. So
Great.
it's come in handy. Let me tell you, I've never read so much. So
Yeah, it's good and bad, hey, for authors. Like it's like bad because you can't go anywhere, and like if you're going to read, you're reading online and you never know what people are thinking, or you can't see if they're
right.
yawning or whatever, you know what I mean? But at the same time it's good because people are at home reading a bit more, than they would normally, right?
Yeah.
So not a bad time to be a writer, maybe. We'll see,
I
I guess.
I mean, I've spoken to quite a few authors, so it's a mixed bag.
Yep.
I'm
Yeah.
stressed. I have writer's block sometimes. I can't
Yeah.
think. I'm worrying about everything else that's going on. And then it's, totally different. And I have the time. Things are just, I can think. I can sit
Mm-hmm.
here and think, and the
Mm-hmm.
words are just coming, straight to me. So it's either one. But I mean, I've
A
noticed
little of
that
both.
a lot more people are reading. Everything is digital, obviously.
Yeah.
I've noticed that there's a lot more short stories that are being
Yeah.
published
And
now.
this whole idea of serializing a book again, right? That's
Mm,
so old, but it's like new again at the same time, which is really fun. I
yeah,
I I have yet to figure out if I'm going to be able to do that, but I kind of veer to the short, frankly. Like I do like short stories. I do like flash fiction, and I do like poetry, right? So I kind of like the short, condensed,
mm,
powerful punch type of thing. And I think I would, it'll be interesting to see a lot of the books that I loved when I was young, Edgar Allan Poe, things like that. Those were done as serials initially, right? They were done as sort of like chapters that came out once a week or once a month in these little magazines, right?
yeah.
So. it'll be kind of fun if we get back to that again. That'll be, I don't know. I think it sounds like fun.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I really don't.
I've read The Invisible Man recently. If you haven't read the original Invisible Man by H.G. Wells, it's really not what I expected. You know, like I saw the movie when I was a kid, and I was kind of surprised by the actual book, but it came out that way, and you can kind of tell because it goes somewhere where you would never expect. Like
Mm,
it starts kind of in one direction, and then it veers into some very interesting stuff. Yeah.
I've never read it,
Yeah.
so
Well, a lot of things like that. Like when they come out like that, I think as an author, you could maybe follow your nose a bit better. You know, like you could just kind of let yourself go and kind of, you know, you wouldn't have this tendency, you wouldn't have this ability to like get to the end of the book and then rewrite the whole thing, revise it all,
mm,
which is what, you know, what I tend to do. I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's just talking away here. Yes, Jim is not a fan of digital books. He likes hard copy, physical book. I
Yeah,
do
me
too
too.
sometimes. But speaking with authors for the last 6 years, I'm inundated with books because they used to send me. I used to get mailed a copy of the book.
Right.
So and then it would be like 2-3 weeks out that they would be scheduled, and so I would have enough time to like read a couple of chapters and then start skimming through because it would be getting close to the guests coming on. So um, I just buy them now digitally if they're available. If it's something that I really want, and I think I'm going to read again, I'll probably get the physical copy. Have you noticed a difference? Are you just digital, or are you also in print
Yeah,
as
no, I
well?
have both. There's
Okay.
an ebook and a print book. Initially, we sold more print books, not very many
Okay.
ebooks, but yeah, in the past couple of months, we've been doing really good with the ebook sales too. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like that's another thing. I think, you know, the world is an accumulative place, cumulative. Like we don't just have one thing or another. We have one thing, then we have another thing, and then we have another thing, and we keep doing the first thing too, and it just kind of all piles up. So I kind of like to have all of them. Like if I can get, um, I have an Apple. I'm an Apple user, right? So I
Mhm.
have like an iPad, and that's what I read on. And
Yeah, me too.
so if I can get the book on the iPad and the audiobook and the print book, all three of them, then I have places in my house where I can do all of that. And I used to when I haven't
Okay.
driven my car much this year, but I used to really like to have audiobooks in the car. You
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
listening to books in the car, and then I would have the print book either in the living room or in on the bedstand, you know, like so that I could read before I go to sleep. And also, then I would have the ebook, which I could have in other areas of the house. Right? I can't sleep after I've read or been working online or on the computer or on the iPad. So
Right.
I tend to go for the physical book, the last thing of the day, right? But yeah, I'm a big reader. I always have been. If I don't read 50 books a year, I can't imagine a year when I wouldn't have read at least 50 books. When I was younger, I used to read 100 a year, but I don't quite have that much time. But I love audiobooks. I love audiobooks too.
I've only done audio, I think maybe once or twice. I've experienced.
When you were a kid, did your parents read to you? See, my dad read to me every night, right? That's why I like audiobooks. I like to have people reading to me.
I don't
Plus,
think so.
the great thing about audiobooks is you can have them on and be doing something else. You can do the housework, you can do the cooking, you can go for a walk and you can be listening, or you can drive the car, right? And you can
Yeah.
be listening to a book. Like, could there be better than that, right? I don't know. I'm a big reader.
I did it while driving. Um, I'm like, okay, whatever. And I'm trying to pay attention, but I'm also trying to drive at the same time. So, and it's not working out because I know what's happening in the book. And, there'd be uh, a part in the book where, you're shocked or it's like, what? And you're just like, I'm freaking out in the car and people probably think I'm crazy anyways. But yeah, so I'm like, okay, I can't read or listen and drive at the same time. So I'm going to do it like when I have time. I can sit there, the TV maybe is on in the background or whatever, but I got the headphones on, I'm listening. And it's
Mm.
cool because you get a different, I think there's a difference between reading it and listening to it sometimes.
Yeah.
Because when you're reading it, you're imagining how they're speaking and what they sound like, and then when you're hearing it, and depending on the narrator, and there's some really good ones out there, a majority
Yeah.
are anyways. Yeah, it's like totally different. Totally
Yeah.
different. So yeah,
It's
they
like a new perspective, right?
yeah.
That's why I like going from one to the other, because it's like it's a bit of a shock sometimes, but it's also I find I get more out of it that way somehow. Like it's nice to have I like to have other people's opinion, I guess. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like having another person's opinion of what these characters might sound like or do or whatever. So
Absolutely.
it's been really weird hearing somebody else read my books, because I've read these books a lot from the very beginning. I was reading them out loud at open mic events and things like that. Like I say, I go to a lot of conferences, and I've had this book with me for a long time, reading from it, even
Mm,
before it was really ready to be read from. but
okay.
but yeah, and after too, like I've read from it quite a few times just this year as well. Well, we launched it and did all these virtual readings and things, and then hearing this narrator read my books, it's kind of freaky,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, but
Yeah.
it's I've been really happy with some of it. Like he's got some great voices for the characters that are right on as far as I'm concerned, and other voices that were kind of surprising to me, but at the same time, I'm going with it because that's, it
Mhm.
makes sense. It makes a certain amount of sense. So yeah. So
Interesting. Well, like I said, I'm gonna have to start from the beginning. Obviously, you would recommend starting from the beginning, reading up until book 3 or book 1
well,
of the new series comes out.
I
So
don't
I at
know,
least
because
have 2 to read.
It depends. Like Spirit Sight is mostly from the young man's point of view, right? Like there's dual point of view in each book, but it's kind of like he drives the story of Spirit Sight, but she drives the story of Water Sight. So sorry, I've got all these flags sticking out here. This is where I read from, right? Sorry,
That's
guys.
okay.
Anyway,
I kind of figured. And
anyways, but
what's the
so I thought that, like I thought, this book is never going to be a standalone. Like it's not. It's just too. It's kind of like old style, where you have to read the first book before you can read the second book and all of that. But I have had a lot of people read the second book and think it was just fine. They didn't really need to read the first one. So I
okay?
don't know. You'll have to let me know.
Yeah,
Start with which one
definitely.
you think is most interesting, and then let me know if it works.
So what does the cover look like? I mean, I kind of remember what the books look like, but the blue one.
The blue one. I have them on little cards. Let me show you. Can you see that better?
Oh, look at that.
See them? Aren't they pretty?
Yes, they are. I do
This
like
is
the
We
cover.
have a young guy from the UK. His name is Callum Jagger, and he came up with these designs based on what we sent him. That kind of wanted an eye, and I kind of wanted. This is the Lion of Gwynedd,
Okay.
the little province where Llewellyn ended up, and this is the dagger that's kind of, like I say, the weapon of
Yep.
choice for my character Katrin.
Well,
Yeah,
you did an awesome job.
yeah,
So
he
I
really
do like.
did. They're beautiful, really nice.
And they can learn more about you by going, you said, to your website,
Yep.
which is.
Which is mariepowell.ca, like Canada, right? .ca. So mariepowell.ca, and you'll find me there. And yeah, it's a pretty common name. It's kind of like having a name like Jane Smith, only it's Welsh. It's a very common Welsh name, Marie Powell,
It
weirdly
was
enough.
very easy for me to
But
remember, uh,
yeah, good.
because most of my family watches, which they are now. And so I was telling my aunt, she'd go, "Oh, who do you have on tonight?" And I said, "Marie Powell is coming on." I remember the name, but I'm like, I know it's fantasy something. I said, I mean, I was driving, so I couldn't look her
Yeah.
up, but the name just, yep, Marie Powell's coming on.
Great. I'm
So
so
yeah,
glad to hear that. Yeah, that's great.
absolutely. I'm gonna have to have you come back on
Oh,
when
sure.
you are finished with that next book, or
I would love to.
anything really. You can come on and talk about anything. It doesn't makes no difference to me. Um,
Sure.
so far, Creative Edge authors have been fantastic.
Yeah, we're quite the crew. We all get together once a month too, and
Yeah,
talk to
I
make
was
get this all
supposed to,
together.
except for one. I was supposed to have talk to, I think it's Christian Cameron.
Okay.
unfortunately, I had to cancel that show Thursday. So I'm hoping he reschedules with me. I had an emergency and I had to cancel, and I felt so bad. But
It
he,
happens.
from the emails, he sounds like a really interesting person. So
Yeah.
yeah. So hopefully I get to talk with him. So, but so far, Jeffrey Carver and who else was I speaking to? There was one other one. Yeah, there was like three altogether, but so far so good.
Great.
So
I'm
yeah,
glad to hear that.
absolutely. I thank you for
Yeah.
coming on.
Jim is asking, can he be added to Facebook? Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. You can find me, Marie Powell Author, on Facebook or
okay.
on Twitter for that matter, or on Instagram. But yeah, absolutely. I would add you if I saw you there. And there's also a Last of the Gifted Facebook site too. There's my bundle eye, we call this one. I don't
Oh,
know. If I ever do a 2-book set or something, that's what I would put on the front
there
of it.
you go. That's nice.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to know that you're all over the place. So I'm gonna have to go
Yeah.
on. I'm on Instagram and Twitter and all that good stuff. So I
Yeah.
definitely follow everyone and see whatever everyone's up to. So yeah. But thank you for coming on and talking to us about it. So
Absolutely. Anytime. Thanks, Brian.
yeah,
And thanks
absolutely.
everybody for all the great questions and comments on the
Yeah,
side.
and I usually tell people this is video, so it's not going to pretty much go anywhere. So if anyone re-watches this and has any questions, just post them because I'll see them. And if
Yeah,
I'll pass them along and go from there.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
would be happy to answer. I should say too, if anybody's interested in the history, in the back of the book, I put a whole bunch of further reading suggestions that were based on the research that I did. And there's like
Oh,
a glossary and a map and all that pronunciation guide for those of us who want to know how to say the Welsh words.
oh, good. Yes,
Yeah,
I'm going to need that. So
yeah,
yeah. All right.
all
Well,
in there.
fantastic.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. All right. So she's still there, but there you go. Right? For our second Sunday, another fantastic guest. So mariepowell.ca is her website. I believe I posted her Amazon page. And like she said, you can find her books practically anywhere. So, but I kind of prefer people to go to the library. I believe they are open. I know mine is, which I've lived here for 5 years and I've never been there. Maybe I shouldn't have admitted that, but I'm going to have to go in there. So go to your library, buy it, just read it. Just read it. Read all of them. And don't forget, for Amazon and any other place that takes reviews, make sure you leave a review after you read it because it's very, very important for authors. The good and the bad, because that way it lets the author know, for maybe next time. So that is it. So I'm going to go. I hope everyone enjoys the last of the weekend here. It's Sunday. So, and I will see everyone on Thursday. And like I said, don't forget to like and share this video. Not only are we on Facebook, we're also on YouTube as well. So, yeah. So like and subscribe. Make sure to do that so that you get the notifications when I go live. And I'll see everyone on Thursday. So, yeah. Just want to make sure who we got here left. So thanks for everyone for showing up. Had a big turnout too, which is great. So yeah, that's about it, really. It was a good show, wasn't it? I can't wait until Thursday. I'm not even sure who I have on Thursday. Oh, I could tell you who I have on Thursday. Give me 1 second here. So Thursday upcoming is going to be, which is May 6th, by the way. We're going to be talking to Zach Landry. So we're going to shift for, I don't know, a couple of shows. We're going to go from fantasy science fiction authorish to music. So we're going to have musicians on the show. That starts on Thursday, so you might want to pay attention. And that show will be at 8:15 on Thursday. So I will see everyone Thursday at 8:15, and we're going to be talking to musician Zach Landry, who's going to be coming on to talk about his brand new single. It's called Hold On. I have seen it on YouTube, so look him up. Zach Landry, Landry. And that's Zach with a K, by the way. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I haven't done music before, I don't think. A couple of times I have, but to be face to face, it's going to be totally different. So look for that. All right, everyone. Goodbye. I am out of here. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you Thursday. Right. Later.